Hey everybody, Aaron here from Honda Pilot Overland. I've been working on quite a few videos, upgrades, modification videos, and they're kind of all lumping into one big project due to some parts that aren't going quite according to plan. I've still got a plan that's going to have me reach success, but in the meantime, what would have been a bunch of individual projects has turned into just one big project. And I'm having a hard time videoing it in a way that's going to show you guys how I did everything. So I'm just going to talk about it a little bit. So as you can see here, we got the Pilot all disassembled. I've got my differential out. Basically, I was just doing a little video showing off my Nolodesigns skid plates and kind of working on prepping for the HRG subframe drop that I have. And when I went to remove the front bolt for the differential, which kind of it sits underneath the other way, but it snapped. Back in Colorado, I was installing the Nolodesigns skid plate, rear diff skid plate back then, and I chickened out and didn't take this bolt out while I was thousands of miles away from home. And it turned out it was a good thing because my hunch, my suspicion was correct, which is that bolt was seized up in there, and because of how long it was, when you try to put force on it, it literally just twisted the bolt and then snapped. So that obviously is never good when you have a bolt snap, so you kind of have to come up with a plan for how to get it out. Thankfully, it looks like I have about a ½ inch of bolt sticking out now that I've got everything out from under the car, so I should be able to weld a nut on top of it and torch it. I should be able to get that to come out, fingers crossed. So the first thing I had to do when I saw this, or that this bolt broke, I needed to get another bolt that was equivalent thread pattern and length. Checked out the local salvage yards. There weren't any all-wheel drive Pilots that would have this bolt. I looked online, and all the places that would sell this bolt didn't have them in stock. I actually successfully I placed an order, and it actually got canceled at Honda Parts online or one of those stores like that. So I did some researching, and based on the length and thread pattern and size of this bolt, I found this bolt right here online that was longer than it. And since I'm installing a subframe drop, I don't think it's going to be an issue that it's a little longer. Also, the way the subframe is, where this goes into the captured nut kind of on top, there's room for it to go through. But my understanding is that this is a differential bolt for a CRV. So if you look up this part number, you should be able to find it. I think I could have gotten it locally in the salvage yard, but instead I bought this for $25 and spent way too much money on it. But that gets me to basically, at that point, once I had to disassemble to this extent, all my projects, my 2015 Honda Pilot rear differential project, my subframe drop project, my Nolodesigns skid plate, all these projects just melded into one, because if I have it disassembled to this degree, I may as well just do it all. And I'll be honest, I'm struggling with doing a how-to video. So at this point, I'm just going to have to catch you up. So the parts number for this 2015 differential and my 2007 are exactly the same. That's what kind of gave me the courage to even attempt this. I have no idea if it's going to work well or not. I checked out the gear ratios for the 2007 and the 2015. I also checked out the various models and gear ratios for the various Honda Pilots that have this exact differential in them. So that would be like the first gen to the 1.5 gen. And they all had slightly different, first gears, reverse gear. It all varied just a little bit. And I'm thinking that because this is a clutch-based system, that it's not... anyways, I'm thinking that maybe I can get away with this newer design, even if the gearing is slightly different because it's a clutch-based system. Who knows? Could be the dumbest thing ever. I could have wasted, I forget what I spent on it, maybe like $150 or something. But I'm going to give it a try. Worst case, I just have to take it back out and put my old one back in. There wasn't anything apparently wrong with it, but I'm thinking that this newer This is a 2007 with 200 and, you know, whatever, 80,000 miles on it. That's a 2015 that LKQ says only has 30,000 miles on it. So in my mind, I'm like, there's a chance maybe the clutch packs are less worn. Maybe I can get more bite in the rear out of this 2015 differential. That's worth the risk to me. So basically, I'm going to, from here, get the nut welded onto that broken bolt. I'll show you it. You can hopefully see it sticking out right there. It's looking good. It's looking like I'm going to be able to get that out. And then I'm going to start installing my my Honda Rescue Garage subframe drop. And then we're going to work on I'm making some custom rear spacers in the rear here. I'm basically going to theoretically just weld two left spacers I already have together. That little bolt might not look like much, but that's the other end of this snapped bolt here. So I was able, just like I said, to weld a nut on top, gave it a little bit of blowtorch action, and we were able to get it back out. So now we can see approximately how much longer my new bolt is. I still don't think the way it's designed and stuff, I still don't think it's gonna be a problem, the extra length. No, it's only barely a little bit longer. I was mistaken though. This bolt goes into the subframe, so the subframe drop actually doesn't have a spacer at the front of the differential here. So next I've decided to kind of tackle my custom lift spacers for the rear of the Pilot. For those of you who are familiar with my current setup, I have lift springs in the rear, and then I have lift spacers, so the air springs basically. The air springs I have, when I inflate them with, you know, an empty load, they raise the back up quite a bit. I would say it seems like 2 inches, but who knows. I haven't had very many axle issues in the rear. The rear wheels don't turn. I think most of the axle issues with when you're overextending an axle happen when you're turning, when you got it close to lock, full lock. So in the rear, I've been kind of rolling with it higher in the back than the front. That way when I put a load on it, kind of evens out. It looks good when I'm towing the pontoon boat, etc. And we tend to pull a lot of weight. So my goal for the new lift is to try to have it sit even with my normal load. So let's say my family and like a moderate load out. I want it to sit even like that, and then if I put the pontoon boat on it, I want to be able to air up the air springs to compensate for that weight. The goal is to keep the Pilot sitting about level no matter what I'm doing. If I'm towing, I want it to be sitting about, you know, normal. If I'm not towing, I want to be able to let out some air so that the rear can go back down. All that is to hopefully help with maintaining more even wear on my tires. The rear, for whatever reason, seems like, to me, it seems like it's because of the constant change in angles there. But this is what I'm currently running right now. I am running 2 plastic cutting board spacers that I made, duct taped to the top of a 2.5 inch lift. So, I mean, to be honest, if you measure this right here, it's quite a bit. Now, I know for a fact my springs are kind of relaxed. They're, you know, if I didn't have this lift on at all, my Pilot would be just like a lot of the Pilots you see on the road with a squatted rear end. But my current springs have a nice soft ride. They flex upwards a lot. Like if I, you know, put a bunch of weight on one tire in the rear, it flexes upwards, which I actually like a lot. So I like the soft ride, and I like the fact that I get a lot of movement out of the springs. So I don't personally want to, you know, change to a stiffer spring. So I'm just going to compensate by trying to lift the Pilot up in the rear higher with these lift spacers. The downside, of course, is getting it to all fit in there. It's a little bit challenging, but I think I can do it. But right now, I think my plan is to weld these 2.5 inch lift spacers with these, I think they called these an 1.5 inch or 2 inch, but it's only like 1 inch. So I'm going to try to weld these two together first, and I'm going to take the duct tape off and kind of see what I'm dealing with here. But my plan right now is to weld these together and make a a nice lift spacer. I might decide to put some of the plastic back on top, but we'll see. Alright, so I finished welding my custom lift spacers here. Let's give them a measure and see what the actual spacer height is. So they're pretty much exactly 3-inch spacers here. The way the rear suspension is made, this is inward of the final height. So I believe when you have 3 inches here, by the time you get to the end, it actually technically lifts it higher. Now, like I said, I still am, in fact, when I put it together now, I'm probably still going to try duct taping these on top. The reason that works is because there's a cone or a metal piece that comes down into the center in here, and as long as it's down deep enough, this can't slide out from under there. And when these are on top, again, they can't slide out either. So it looks a little janky, but it gets me another 1/2 inch of easy lift. If this doesn't end up being high enough for me, what I might end up doing is buying a 2-inch spacer to weld on top instead of this 1-inch spacer, but we will see. Careful, Evan, that's hot.
This?
It is hot, yep.
I want to touch it.
You can touch the top of it. See how warm it is. It's not cold, is it? Is it hot or is it not hot?
Not hot.
Not hot?
Because it's only...
That's pretty warm. Feel that one lightly. Don't hold it down too long. Do you know why it's hot?
You welded it.
Yeah, look, see those welds right there? That means I actually melted the metal together. That's how hot it is. Isn't that crazy? So I was moving on to lowering the subframe in the rear. And on my side that was repaired with that patch, I already had I had drilled through so I could get a really long bolt to kind of sandwich on top and bottom. So like a top plate, and you can see there's a hole going straight through the car. The top plate kind of sits here, and then you run the bolt through and it kind of sandwiches the saddle that I made and everything together. So I moved on to this side, fingers crossed that I'd be able to get it off. I even applied some heat to the bolt until the bushing started kind of catching fire, which basically made me have to stop. And I was trying to back it out, and of course it did the same thing that this side did back when I was trying to remove it. It turned like, I don't know how many turns, like, 6 turns, and then just froze. And then if you tried to run it back in, it wouldn't move, and backing it back out, it wouldn't move. And now I've gotten it to the point where that 17mm impact socket has actually rounded the corners of the 17mm head, and I'm in a bit of a pickle. But and obviously if this one's stuck, I'm worried about the front two as well. So what I've done is found each of the heads. So right underneath that duct tape, there's a hole that I drilled, which gives me the top of the bolt for the front. And then on that side, I had to do a little bit more trial and error, but one of those duct tape patches is also holding in or it has a hole going to the top of the bolt. What that allowed me to do was get some PB Blaster on it, and if I have to, I can also apply heat directly to the top, and I'm thinking about trying that on this side right here. So I'll keep you posted if I have any luck with that.
It isn't mine.
Alright, got some more hard-earned success here. So inside the Pilot, I was able to open up a hole above this, and I was able to torch the top part of this bolt, which worked really well because as you guys can see, it was stuck somewhere right around here. So when I was torching the bottom, it had to heat up all the way through all of the bushing and all the rubber, and the bushing was catching on fire. So when I was able to get to the top, or by going to the top of the bolt, I was able to get the heat where it needed to be. So I think I'm going to use that same technique on the rest. We just need to be careful that we don't have anything flammable in the vicinity of where we're heating. So I'm going to go underneath and kind of check around. On this side, I'm worried about fuel, the fuel tank, how close it is or isn't. On this side, we're probably pretty good. But, yep, so you can see, got my hole. So we're almost ready to put the subframe drop in the rear. Making progress, though, always feels good, because when you come to these roadblocks, they can feel pretty daunting sometimes. So I'm glad to get that bolt out. Alright, the blowtorch in the hole method seems to have worked for each of the corners. I got both the front bolts loose. I will say you've got to be very careful in the front 2 bolts. There's just closer proximity to the fuel tank underneath, but also this carpet up top. I didn't end up cutting as big a hole, in that area either, so I wasn't able to vacuum it out like I was here in the back. So there's, little rubber pieces and whatnot. But anyways, I got it hot enough to get the bolts moving. So I'm gonna put the subframe drop in the back here, and then I'm gonna work to start putting the differential back underneath the vehicle. All right, so I've loosened the front subframe bolts in the back here. I have let it droop down, hopefully far enough to get the spacer in there. But I am going to put some anti-seize on the new bolt that HRG supplies before throwing it up in this hole. Alright, now I'm looking up in here to see my my body rot, and it looks like I've got a bit of body rot on this side as well. And while I've got it disassembled like this, it's going to definitely be smart to create that saddle solution that I did before. So you can see it. It's in there. It definitely has some rot. So I'm going to take this shield down and start fabricating. So the last batch of plate steel that I bought was these, I think they're 5x5, maybe 6x6. Let's see. No, they're 5x5. But they came pre-drilled with 1/2-inch holes, and it's actually really amazing how useful those pre-drilled holes are. So basically what I'm going to do is cut this angle iron and weld this up like this, and I'll weld up the other side, and then I just have to measure the distance in the center, and my goal always is to have it real close, that way I kind of have to hammer it up. That's the saddle. That's what we're going to make right there. You can see some of the rot that I had down under there. And then it spreads the weight up to where those 2 1/2-inch bolts are. Not sure if they're 1/2-inch or not, actually. No, I wasn't able to get 1/2-inch bolts drilled through there, but it spreads the weight, which is good. It makes it a one giant sandwich. Alright, so I got my bracket painted and primed here, and I'm working to prep the pilot to take it. On this side, I was able to slide the bracket up right about here and hammer it over until it was in place. On this side, the exhaust hanger is in the way. And I think what I'm going to try to do to start with here is just put a tube on this, a pipe, give it a bend and see what happens. Alright, I don't know if that's enough or not. We will see. Alright, where's my hammer at? Alright, so as you can see, we got the bracket kind of in place. One of the steps I have to do is I have to drill a 1/2-inch hole on the very bottom. So we're going to take our jack and lift the subframe back up here. Alright, this is reminding me of another thing. On the inside edge here, my bracket needs to be cut to kind of allow everything in place. So drop this back down, get this out. But yeah, kind of like this corner has to be cut off, so I'm gonna hack that off real quick. This corner on the inside edge needs to be cut off to clear the subframe, so I'm gonna get to work on that. Alrighty then, let's try this again. So I went ahead and just drilled an oversized hole, that way I don't have to make it line up precisely. I don't think it really matters there. Cut off the corner here. Let's see if we can get this to slide up and over. Alright, so far it's looking good. Let's get our subframe spacer up here and start raising the subframe up. Alright, so turns out if you're installing the subframe drop, then you don't have to worry about clearing this corner here at all. So the next step is to try to drill on each side of this spacer here. I think I'm gonna crank up the bottom nice and tight first, and then we'll try to drill through. I'm hoping to be able to get through these holes, but they're kind of close to the top here, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to or not. Alright, so we got our little sandwich happening here. I put on this bottom plate as well. I've noticed there's a little bit more space in here than on this side. So what I might have to do is measure from approximately here, you know, to this edge. And on this side, I might have to add a little bit of my own custom spacer between the subframe drop and here, just to make sure that it's kind of the same on both sides. I would hope the alignment, you know, could still come out good, even if I don't do that, but I'm going to play it safe and do that. That's the one, you know, kind of unfortunate part about putting a little spacer in here, is it's hard to get it, you know, 100% back to where it would be height-wise. But all we have to do is get some holes drilled and get some bolts through, and we should be ready to move on to the front part of this rear subframe drop. So then we'll be able to start getting the rear differential thrown back in here. Alright, so there it is, the new bracket, saddle, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to see if I can bend this muffler hanger back. Maybe it'll snap, but we'll see. But yep, it's looking good. Everything feels nice and tight. So I'm going to move up to the front of the rear subframe here and see if I can get the 1-inch spacers in there too. Good morning again. So yesterday I was able to get all of the subframe spacers placed in the rear. It's pretty neat when you start seeing what an inch of subframe drop actually looks like. It's a lot more of a drop than I was initially anticipating. I also got the trailing arm spacers on. When Ben says be careful not to cross thread these, he is not kidding. So I highly recommend getting them started by hand and trying to move the trailing arm to where it's as square as possible before you start trying to thread those in. Oh wow, and now with the subframe drop, I'm going to have a lot more room for my ratchet up on top. So it seems like my bolt that I bought might actually be too long. Initially I thought maybe there'd be a subframe spacer here, but I see that I was a little silly for thinking that, because it actually bolts to the subframe, so dropping the subframe negates the need for a spacer here. So I'm gonna have to cut my bolt just a little bit shorter, which is fine. I'm gonna get the rear fastened up first before I do that. I'm gonna be working to put my Nolodesigns skid plate on here in a moment anyways, so that'll be a good time to remove this bolt again. But let's move to the back here, see if we can't get these other differential retainer bolts in. Whew. It's exhausting working above your head. Alright, working along, and we got the Nolodesigns skid plate up and on. What I might do in the future is create another like how-to video, but it's looking really good. Ian did an awesome job designing this new skid plate. He's got all the cool details on it, and they're bolted right up with pretty much no problem at all. My vehicle's a little custom in the back, so I had to modify it just a little bit, but I believe that it'll bolt up perfectly to a stock pilot. The subframe spacers installed on the security loop and the carrier bearing. So now I'm gonna move on to the back here, installing the custom lift spacers that I made and replacing these adjustable control arms. This brand was just something I found probably on eBay, and with this particular one I had to actually cut the sleeve a little bit so that it would adjust small enough to get, you know, to adjust for the positive camber the lift kind of put on it. But this time I went with a little bit better quality product. I went with the Moog equivalent here. Now, one thing that I need to double check is that it adjusts small enough in its stock form. So what I'm going to do is remove this one, and then we will compare the minimum length to each other and see if we need to cut the sleeve on this one at all. Before I get too far, the bushing on this adjustable control arm held in there pretty good, but as you can hear and see, the ball joint is shot. You want to keep your ball joints of any kind in good shape, because if they go, they're always holding something important in place. Alright, so we got the tool on, and we've got our 19mm ratchet on. You gotta watch your hands, because this kind of can come off with some energy. So you just sit there and tighten it until it pops. See, that's why you wear safety glasses, guys. In the future, I might place a towel over the top of it, help reduce some of that crazy energy there. It looks like the Moog one is slightly smaller, so for right now I'm going to leave it just as it is without cutting anything. Ball joints are installed on each side, so that leads me up to the next project. And now it is time to get the axle back in and see if we can get our custom lift spacer to actually fit. So my total custom lift spacer is about 3 1/4, and that is with the plastic cutting board spacers duct tape back on. I think it'll be fine to run with those still duct tape on. They basically get pressed up underneath this lift, so they can't really come off, and the center here stops, you know, the outer spring from, or the lift spacer from kind of shifting off. So it should end up being good enough for now. But that being said, everything I'm doing is an experiment. Don't copy me and expect, you know, 100% success. I am definitely trying to push the limits here of what's possible. We will see if I can get this giant spacer back in, and we'll also see what the final height is. If you remember, also my springs, like I said, are kind of wore out, so if you put this spacer right here with like a stiffer spring, you're going to be pushing this rear wheel down really far, possibly too far for the axles, and even I might be doing that. So stay tuned while we try to reassemble this, and keep posted for future updates on how it's doing. So for pretty much all the suspension bushings and stuff, you don't want to tighten them down all the way until you are until you have it fully basically on the ground at the riding height. That's when you want to do all your adjustments for stuff like that. So let's take a look here. See what it's going to take. Because of the subframe drop, I'm like 99% sure that I need to raise the back end up higher. If I put the spacer and the spring into this lower control arm right now, I don't think I'll be able to get anything underneath of it to lift it up. So I think I'm going to have to use my little scissor jack, which I don't love doing, but we'll see what we can do here. Alright, so once you get the spring kind of sandwiched up in here, also, by the way, you will have to be up pretty high to do this. But basically you twist the spring as far as it'll go in the bottom of the tray. Looks like I got a little bit further to go. Alright, right there. The spacer's looking good. Next thing I like to do is put a ratchet strap around here to basically just hold the spring so it doesn't squirt out the side as you jack it up. So I noticed previously when I was disassembling everything that this cross brace here on the subframe, the axle head touched it before. And so right now, you know, obviously that was I hammered it back up, made it straight again. But I'm looking at it right now and it's already touching it again. So it'll be really interesting to see when I put the other side together if it does the same thing. So I've ordered some longer struts, or shocks, sorry, to go in the back here. But as you can see, the stock Honda Pilot shocks, when you install a subframe drop and add the lift that I have, it does not reach. So if I jack the Pilot up right now, or sorry, if I use the jack, I can lift this up and I can get it in. But when the suspension droops, quite clearly this will be the limiting factor because it doesn't go up any higher. So and unfortunately my new shocks that I ordered that are going to be long enough for it, they're kind of in short supply right now, and a lot of places have them out of stock. I actually ordered a set from eBay and from another store, and they both were canceled because they were listed as being in stock but not in stock. So I'm currently waiting to get the two that I've ordered. In the meantime, I think I'm going to make an extension bracket to basically allow this to reach the top without being the limiting factor. So, all right, so this is what I've come up with to last me until the new shocks get here. I'm going to get probably some appropriate hardware. I don't have enough hardware to get this all together, but basically this goes on to the knuckle, and then you turn the eye of the shock perpendicular, and that should make it to where the opposing forces and whatnot equal out to where the shock and this adapter still stay upright. Obviously we have to see if it's strong enough, but I think it will be. Alright, the temporary bracket is on. Let's see if I can show it to you here. Hopefully that's a good view, but it should do the job until my new struts get here, and if they don't, we'll come up with another plan. All right, to wrap up this video, I just wanted to show you the stance of the Pilot after the lift. I did fail in one regard in the back. I do have to have a little bit of air in the air springs to get it up to this level. But as you can see, the Pilot has a pretty even stance. It's not loaded down right now, so the back's a little high, but that's pretty much how I like them. I like my Pilot to have an even loaded height. So thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, if you try to take on any of these repairs yourself, be sure to leave comments. I'm gonna help you out, and the Pilot community that's on my page will also try to help you out. And yeah, if you enjoy videos like this and seeing our family adventures, it always helps if you guys throw a little support our way. So check out our Amazon affiliate page in the link below the video. And Patreon really helps right now too, with the gas prices the way it is. We're heading over to All-Wheel Drive Fest tomorrow, so we're excited about that, getting to meet up with some more like-minded people. And so be sure to stay tuned for that video as well. Have a great day.